Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. Yeah!
Hi, welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. I recently did a video on chlorine enhancers, and I think it would be a good thing to expand on that. It was a 4-minute video. It is, of course, a lot more that goes into it that I could put in that short video. I think you can get the gist of it with these enhancers, but I think it does need some unpacking, and that's why I think this podcast would serve as a good way to prep you on chlorine enhancers. Pool Service Pro, open a Leslie's wholesale account today and receive wholesale pricing on products you use every day. Leslie's Pool Supply offers convenient locations that are open 7 days a week. Another great benefit of opening a Leslie's wholesale account is Leslie's referral program. Get referred to a customer looking for weekly pool service. Save time and money and grow your pool service route and become a Leslie's Pro. So what is a chlorine enhancer? This is a term that I'm not sure if I can take credit for coining it. I use it a lot, but I'm not sure if I'm the originator of it. I don't want to take credit for something that's not mine, of course. But I do use this term a lot in my videos and my podcast, and I say it a lot. And basically, it's something that enhances the chlorine in the pool, making it last longer and be more effective. What can do this? Well, there are several things that can do this that are on the market today. The easiest one to use, and the one I started with, it's something that really you don't need any kind of knowledge to use, is a phosphate and enzyme combination, which I classify as a 1-2 punch, and you can either use the Perfect Weekly or the Natural Chemistry Pool Perfect and Phos-Free. These are two pretty good products that have really good enzymes and phosphate removers in them. I like the Phos-Free because it's a pretty weak phosphate remover. It's not as strong as the other brands. Like if you wanted a truly strong phosphate remover, you would go with the Arenda phosphate remover, or even, like the Biodex has a pretty strong one also. These are a lot stronger, and so you can't really mess up with the Phos-Free is what I'm saying, especially if it's in a blended formula with the Perfect Weekly. You just have to put the dosage in based on the amount of gallons of your pool. For instance, we're using the Perfect Weekly, you would add 1 capful, which is 4 ounces for 8,000 gallons. So if you had a 15,000 gallon pool, you'd probably put 2 capfuls in. So it's kind of hard to mess this up. You just add a dose every week. And then you have your phosphate remover, which removes a food source for algae. There's a couple, 2 or 3 food sources for algae. And if you remove the phosphates, you pretty much remove one of their primary food sources. And this will, of course, effectively control any algae in your pool, eliminate it. It's not technically an algaecide. It's not registered as an algaecide, but it does remove the food source for algae. And then, of course, with the Smart Enzyme, we'll take care of all the non-organic, suntan lotion, sweat, anything that's in the pool, cosmetics, any kind of chemical or substance that's in the pool that the chlorine would normally be used up fighting. It definitely will help extend the life of the chlorine in the pool that way. And also on the other end of it with filtration, since it's removing the oils from the pool, the filtration works better. And so the pool filtration system will work more efficiently and effectively. And you're going to get a lot more out of the pool filter using the enzyme. So it's a definite win-win in that regard, that you are basically getting a 1-2 punch with the phosphate remover and with the enzyme. And if you use the Perfect Weekly, it has the Cover Free, which is the chemical that is used to help with evaporation. And this is why I can safely recommend these products, because they're effective, they work, they definitely are going to enhance the chlorine. Of course, there's other factors like a dirty pool filter, not running the pool long enough, having existing algae. These are all factors that will probably short circuit the effectiveness of the product. But if your pool is balanced, if your filter's clean and you're using this product, you should have no problems with algae in the pool. And I really like the enzyme because it does help with the scum line that gets built up on some tiles. So it's a great product with a lot of good effects in your pool besides enhancing the chlorine. Now, note that the blended formulas are mainly for maintenance dose. If you have a phosphate problem in your pool, you want to treat that first and eliminate the phosphate problem. This just makes sure that the phosphate problem doesn't continue once you've cured it. Usually if you have a phosphate issue, it's going to be something that's entering the pool water from somewhere causing that. And if you had the maintenance dose of this product, you're going to prevent it from getting bad again. So of course, treat the phosphates first with a straight phosphate remover like the Arenda PR10000 or with the Phos-Free. by itself, and you want to make sure that, again, your pool is algae free before you start this, because it's not really going to help you much if your pool is a mess and this is not the product for that. Now, if your pool is kind of messy, you have algae, then you're going to need an algaecide, and Polar X is a great way to help with the pool that's maybe turning a little green or you have yellow algae, because it is an EPA registered algaecide. It's also NSF 50 approved, which means that you can use Polar X in a commercial pool since it has the approval of the EPA, and it also is NSF 50 approved. It has copper sulfate pentahydrate, zinc sulfate monohydrate, and silver nitrate. So this is called a mineral technology, and there's a few other ones that fit this category. You have the Nature 2, and you have the Blu-ray XL. These all use mineral technology to help fight algae in the pool and prevent it. And by doing this, of course, chlorine is freed up to be more active in other areas. Chlorine is used up by fighting algae in the pool, and you know this if you do pool service, that even if you have a small amount of algae, you're going to notice that the chlorine level is dropping or drops rapidly in the pool. So Polar X will control the algae in the pool. It'll eliminate even microalgae, algae that you can't see. And the algae may be forming, but you don't see it. And this happens a lot where you get back to the pool a week later and the whole pool is full of algae because you couldn't see the algae starting, or you may have missed a spot. So the Polar X will prevent this. It's really easy to use. It's probably not quite as easy to use as the phosphate and enzyme product, but it's fairly easy. You clean your pool filter, you size the unit. The sizing is important. You have two different sizes depending on your pool. And then you can, of course, add another unit or a booster to increase the size of it. I have a lot of podcasts on Polar X. You can find those by going to my website, swimmingpoollearning.com. On the banner, click on the podcast icon. When you get to that site, just type in Polar X, and you're going to see a bunch of podcasts that I did with Fred Schweer, who's the VP of marketing over there at Polar X. And basically, you get the right size. After you clean the filter, you get the right size Polar X unit. And then you want to put it in the pump basket or the skimmer basket and let the pool run for its cycle, 6 or 8 hours, however long you have it running. It has to run for a good amount of time to get the minerals through the filter. So I would say 6 to 8 hours would be the minimum time. And then, of course, there's a few caveats to Polar X. You don't want to have any existing copper in the water because the minerals are chelated, which means that they're suspended. They won't fall out of solution. But if there's copper in the water already, then there's too much of the minerals in there, and it's not going to have the same effect. And so you can't have any copper in the water pre-existing. So if you're using copper algaecides, you probably want to eliminate the copper first if it's in the water. You would do that with the Sealator 4.0 and a metal sequestering agent before you do the Polar X. It's not something that's very common, but you just want to make sure that the pool does not have any copper in the water itself at that point. The Polar X unit should last 4 to 6 months in the pool, depending on the conditions of the water. Of course, if there's algae present at the beginning, or if you had a green pool, you're going to probably need a booster to get more minerals because the minerals are used up destroying algae and killing algae in the pool. So be aware of the fact that it's not something that is, infinite. It's something that's finite. So 4 to 6 months would be the time you would get out of the Polar X, which would be the whole season basically. If you put it in April or May, it should last the whole season. And believe me, it does work effectively. On their site, it says you can save up to 70% in your chemical costs, and I believe that to be accurate. You can save quite a bit of money with the Polar X. So you're using at least half the chlorine you normally would use, and you're saving money there. And you're not going to need to buy algaecides either, or you won't need to shock your pool with a lot of chlorine, of course, raising the cost of your pool care at that point. So it is highly effective. I like it. I think it's a simple product, easy to sell to your customers. You have a visual product in a shell. It looks really professional. And you can just sell them that as an algaecide, the seasonal algaecide that you're going to charge your customer. You can sell it as a chlorine enhancer, however you want to do it. It's something that's a pretty easy sell. And once you start using the Polar X, you're going to really enjoy it and you're going to want to keep using it. And I should clarify that it's the Polar X Plus now. There's like a little plus next to the name because the original one is being phased out. You might be able to still get some of the Polar X, but now you just call it Polar X Plus. And I always forget to add the plus to it when I talk about it. But it is Polar X Plus and not just straight Polar X. And the third enhancer would be borates. And borates are a great way to keep algae from forming in the pool. So borates, again, is not an algaecide. It's not a registered algaecide, but it is what's called an algistat or a biostatic agent or an algistat, and this inhibits the growth of algae itself. It does something with the cells in the algae, disrupting them, and they can't perform photosynthesis. So borates are a great way to prevent algae in the pool. They don't kill algae, they won't eliminate it, but they will prevent it from growing. So if your pool has algae, of course, treat it first, balance the water, then add the borates in there, and you're going to see pretty good effects in the water with the borates. Now, the borate level you want to achieve is anywhere from 30 to 50 parts per million. I believe the EPA number is 35 parts per million, and then you can go as high as 50 safely. I wouldn't probably go any higher than that, because then the effects of the borates are more negligible at the higher levels. You don't see a big difference between 50 and 70. Besides, 50, I think, is a sweet spot where you want to shoot for. But even at 35 parts per million, you still have a really good amount of borates in the water. It'll have a very similar effect as 50 parts per million at 35 parts per million. I'm not sure if there's a big difference at 50 and 70, 80. I don't go that high in my pools, so I wouldn't know offhand. It's almost like doubling the dosage at that point. And I would say that 50 parts per million has been very successful for me. And adding borates has a secondary benefit, and that is that the borates in the water act as a pH buffer. Everyone should know that alkalinity is your main pH buffer, so the alkalinity level will affect how rapidly the pH bounces up and down. So if your alkalinity is at like 180 and you add half a gallon of acid to your pool and it's 20,000 gallons, chances are that the pH, if it was at 8, will go down to 7.8, but then it'll go back up to 8 because the alkalinity is so high in that pool. It acts as a buffer, so the acid has very little effect on it. And so if you have alkalinity at 80 and you add half a gallon of acid to that pool and it's at 8.0, and the pH is going to drop down to like 7.4 because you don't have that buffer if the alkalinity is at 80. And borates act as a secondary buffer on top of that. So if you have a saltwater generator, which is why I recommend borates in a saltwater pool specifically, is that the saltwater generator is always making the pH rise in the pool. And if you have alkalinity at 80, it's going to help somewhat. But then if you have borates at 50 parts per million, it's going to help even more. And the pH is going to rise even less than it was before you added the borates. I can't really tell. Each pool is a little different, but it's definitely going to help with the pH going up rapidly in the pool. Some pools, it really helps tremendously. Other pools, you don't see too much of that. And it has to do also with water features and all the turbulence in the water. But you're going to see some effect, especially on a non-saltwater pool. But on a saltwater pool, you should see some effect on the pH not going up as rapidly as when you didn't have the borates in the water. And the chlorine is more effective when the pH is more stable and lower, although there's some recent research saying that the cyanuric acid level has a higher effect on the effectiveness of chlorine than the pH in the pool, I should say. But the borates are going to help keep that pH stable as another factor. And then there's a shine to the water, or a sparkle to the water, that you have with the borates. Not sure exactly why that is, but you're going to notice that pools with borates have more of a sparkle. They just look much better, and that's one of the side effects of the borates that's good. So mainly you're using the borates to prevent algae in the pool, and with the algae not growing in the pool, the chlorine is freed up and enhanced so that it works more effectively. And all of these enhancers work great in conjunction with each other or by themselves. You don't necessarily have to use them by themselves. You could use borates in the pool, and you can use an enzyme and phosphate remover if you wanted to. You can use PoolRx and borates. You can use PoolRx and enzymes and phosphates. They're all compatible. They may not be necessary to use in conjunction, but you can use them. And I have done experiments where I have used them in conjunction. In fact, I did a pool, or a few pools, where I had a PoolRx unit, I had borates at 50 parts per million, and I was using the enzyme and the phosphate remover, which is probably not necessary as far as having the phosphate remover part of it. But I was just experimenting with the blended formula in a pool that has the PoolRx and borates, and there was no chance for any algae to ever grow in that pool. Basically, I did a borate test at my own pool where I left it with no chlorine, and about 3 weeks, it was in May or April and May when the season was starting. So about 3 weeks after there was no chlorine in the pool, I did start to see some algae forming, and then about a few days after that, the pool turned really cloudy. So of course, the borates had their limit or their breaking point. You can't keep a pool with just borates with no chlorine. All of these, of course, will have a breaking point. You can't have a pool with Borates with no chlorine for a long period of time, because then it's not going to be effective. So the sanitizer is, of course, important in the water, and you want to have a proper chlorine level in the pool. Which one do I prefer? It just depends on the customer, what I'm selling, and what the customer needs. I put borates in some pools. I use Borates in others, and I will use the enzyme and phosphates, especially in the pools that get heavy use, have dogs swimming in them, high bather loads. I think it's an effective way to help with all the non-organics in the water, and I really think any of these would work effectively. You just kind of pick and choose which one you like best for your pool service. Stick with it. If you want to have all your customers on borates, that's perfectly fine. A lot of pool pros like the Pool RX. They like putting them in there. They like the visualness of it and the effectiveness of it. So it just depends. Try them all and see which one you like the best. I recommend just experimenting with certain pools on your rod. If you've never tried borates, try it on a couple pools. If you've never tried the phosphate and enzymes, give that a shot. If you've ever tried a Pool RX, try one of those and see how you like it. And I think you're going to have great results with any or all three of these enhancers. An alternate enhancer would be the Remington Solar Sun Shock. And this device is designed to reduce algae, bacteria, microorganisms, and it operates by using solar energy. And the solar panel will activate the copper anode, and it uses copper ionization to work. So the solar panel, basically, it will power the copper ionization, and the electrical energy it generates from the solar panel will interact with the copper anode. It sounds complicated. It's actually a pretty easy device. If you look at it, there's a copper anode on the bottom. There are a few things you need to know. The copper is not chelated, so you are going to add some copper to the water, and that's how effectively it works in the pool. It's going to be a really small percentage of copper added to the water if you size it correctly. And then the chemical reaction, of course, will eliminate all algae in the pool. It's really highly effective. The reason why I think it's more of a product that isn't widely used by the pool pro is that the suppliers don't usually carry it, and so you have to buy it at outlets like Costco or online. And we generally buy all of our enhancers directly from the manufacturer, although borates are one that we buy outside the manufacturer, or the wholesaler, I should say. So I will correct myself there. But it's something that people swear works really well, and I've, of course, used it myself on some pools, and it works extremely well. So it's not something that you want to just write off and overlook. I would definitely research it, the Remington Solar Sun Shock, and it's really a product that does work effectively, and it may be something that you may go towards. For instance, if you were going to use a Pool RX, but you didn't want to use that product, this would be a comparable product. Now, I wouldn't say that you would use this with any kind of Pool RX product because it's not compatible, since this one adds copper to the water. So be careful there if you're going to use this. And then, of course, some people will just use a copper algaecide in their pool every week, like a maintenance dose. And, that can work effectively as an enhancer. I don't really see that as a major problem as long as you keep an eye on the copper level and don't overdo it. But to me, that would be the one that I would probably use the least. It wouldn't be the one that I would want to use. And I'm kind of drifting away from enhancers here because these are algaecides. So they're not really a chlorine enhancer. They're more like an algaecide, like sodium bromide. You can, of course, use the maintenance dose of that in your pool, and that will keep algae out. But again, these are not actually enhancers per se that are widely used. They're more of an algaecide or preventative algaecide, like a Polyquat 60 would be a preventative algaecide that you can use in the pool to keep algae from forming and growing. It acts similar to the enhancers, but it's in a different category itself. However, Pool RX is an algaecide, but it does fit the enhancer category because it's a specially formulated product that's made to last 4 to 6 months. So it fits the category of an enhancer like borates or like the phosphate and enzymes that you would add a maintenance dose every week to the pool because of its ability to last 4 to 6 months in the pool. But, I'm kind of blurring the lines here, and it does get kind of gray. Anything that I guess can make chlorine last longer in the pool should be considered a chlorine enhancer, whether it be an algaecide, a borate type product, borax, boric acid. These are also products that enhance the chlorine. Of course, I mentioned earlier those products. and then you have the enzyme and phosphates. So if you really wanted to be kind of all-inclusive, you would probably include some of these preventative algaecides as enhancers as well, the polyquat 60s, the copper algaecide, which I wouldn't really use too much of. And basically, these all have a similar effect on making the chlorine last longer. So I don't want to exclude anything that may fall into the outlier category. Those are also used widely by pool professionals as well. Some pool professionals still use the maintenance dose of the sodium bromine, bromine in the pool to help fight algae. Others will use something like No More Problem, which has some sodium bromine in there also, and it's an effective product. So these are also effective. So keep these on your radar, but essentially the three enhancers that pool pros generally use are phosphate and enzymes combined. We also use the Polar-X, or the Mineral Technology, or the Nature 2, and we use borates primarily, at least in my area. These are the primary enhancers that we rely on. And if you're looking for other podcasts I've recorded where I talk about borates, you can, of course, go to my website again, swimmingprolearning.com. On the banner, click on the podcast icon and just type in borates or boric acid. You'll see those appear. Polar-X, same thing. And of course, I do talk about the enzymes and the phosphate removers in other podcasts. You can find those. I have about 1,400 podcasts you can listen to at your leisure. And if you're interested in the coaching program, you can learn more at poolguidecoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. Real quick, if you're not using pool service software, try Skimmer free for 30 days at getskimmer.com/poolguy. Again, that's getskimmer.com/poolguy. Skimmer, everything you need to run your pool service business all in one app. Pool Service Pro, open a Leslie's wholesale account today and receive wholesale pricing on products you use every day. Leslie's Pool Supply offers convenient locations that are open 7 days a week. Another great benefit of opening a Leslie's wholesale account is Leslie's referral program. Get referred to a customer looking for weekly pool service. Save time and money and grow your pool service route and become a Leslie's Pro.